Hey everybody, it's David R. Becker here with Becker Art, and we're here to do a nice demonstration of waves and sunlight and reflections. And so we're going to have a fun time tonight, and we are doing this in a very strange colors, but we're going to be still doing it with a 5 color palette. Well, actually the three. I'm just going to take again. I thought of doing it in full color, but I'm having so much fun with you guys trying to do everything in 3 colors and black and white that I'm going to keep on going for a while with that, because I think it's a really important thing to learn how to do the colors, right? So let's get going right away to my website to show you where you can pick up this painting. Here, I've had a couple of people ask me again, where do I pick up the photo? And if you click right there, see it's Paint Along Thursday, and if you click on that, on the actual picture, you'll come up with this page, and then you can either do the download image right up here, or you can right click this image and it will pop up, and then you can save as. You can do a save as, and so save it. I think you can even probably, some of you probably can do it with right away printing it, but this is always a 14 by 11 size. You try to make it that same size for everything, so that's where you get it. Again, it's on my davidrbecker.com. See my name right there, David R. Becker. And if you want a newsletter where you're getting to pick up the thing, then you go down here, and right there is the newsletter. And if you don't want to get the newsletter but still want to read the newsletter, you can go right to this little, on the bottom where it says sign up. Right below that, there's read past newsletters. So you can just read the newsletter. You have to wait until Tuesday, and then it'll be up there. All my newsletters are there, so you can read all the ones from way back on too. All right. So then we can go from there to my supplies we're using again. And so today I'm going to be using 140 pound paper, still Stonehenge. I'm using Stonehenge 140 instead of 300 pound. I will still be using the Permanent Yellow, Scarlet Lake, and Ultramarine Blue. I like mixing. I like teaching you guys how to mix the colors. And I think, if you do want to put other colors in there, that's fine. Go right ahead. And then the value pattern. Let me go to the value pattern. And so here, the value pattern, as you can see, everything except for the waves, or the reflections, and the waves, kind of the waves too are dark. The reflections, the waves, the birds, and the posts, those are all dark, and everything else is light. Very simple composition, very simple. Like the lighting here you have with the sun right here. You can see it goes right down here. I think I'll do it right around there, but maybe move it over a little bit so it's not tangent to this edge right here. So I'm just going to go right down here, and you can put masking fluid down there. I really don't like using masking fluid anymore because it takes so much time, and all of mine dries up all the time. And so I'm just going to add white paint to that later on. All right, and then you see there's violet. So basically it's going to be violet and yellows. And I know it's kind of bluish violet. That's fine. It's going to be more of a lavender kind of violet. And orange and blue. Well, the sky is orange, but it's kind of like almost too orange for me. So I'm not probably not going to do it quite that orangey, but that's what it is. And so you can do whatever color you want and just make it light. Just as long as all this stuff right here is light, you're fine. And this is all the darks, right? And you can, anywhere the sun is hitting right back here, you can let the sun, because the sun is your light source, and then you can make this area more warm. And so you can make this really warm and have a cool foreground and warm background because the sun is right back here, and that's the warmest, right? All right, and so that's a little bit of explanation why I do. As a watercolorist, you always want to kind of figure out your value pattern first. And a lot of people do it with a sketch pad and a pencil, like a nice ebony pencil that they can get really dark darks, and just go for your black and whites. And there is, if I take this down a little bit, this would be kind of gray, and the only sunlight would be the sun and the reflections. That would be the lightest part. So that also shows me how to go through and paint this. So what I would do is I look right away. It's like, okay, my lights to darks, right? The Becker Art 3-step. And so you do step 1 is all the lights. So right away, I'm going to go through all this stuff. Where do I go? So right here, I would take the light, and I just go through everything. I don't go around these posts, because then you won't get a nice wash. And I'm not going to stop where the light is right here. If I if I wanted to have it really out of the paper, I would masking fluid that, or just put white paint in there later. So, and either way of getting light, there's either going to be using masking fluid. There's also wax. You could put white crayon down there. If you know it's going to stay white, and it's going to be white right here. But as I'm painting, I like to have that opening for if I move, the sun happens to be right over here a little bit farther to the left, then I can reflect it down here, Or if all of a sudden I make the circle a little bit too far over here, then I can bring it down here. It's got to be right below the sun when you're doing your reflections. All right, so let's go to our tabletop and get started here. And there we go. So as you can see, and at first I drew the head of him looking this way, and then I didn't like that, so I drew him that way like he was. And also, that bird doesn't look quite seagull-y enough. And so though he's a seagull, but I just kind of made him up, and because he looks too skinny there, the seagull, and up top, mine looks maybe a little bit too fat, but we'll see. All right, and so if you have any questions, please put them on the side here, and let's just see who's all here today. And so, oh, hey, everybody. We got a lot of people here. Sherry, Nancy, Carol, Marsha, Deb, Karen, Eve, Tina, and Maureen, and Helen. And thanks all for stopping by here tonight. And again, I'm doing this in three colors, the primary colors, but I will probably mix a little bit differently this time because I'm going to have get a little bit more of the orange and yellow mixed, enough of it so I can do the whole background. And since I'm using 140-pound paper, let me just get this out of the way. So what I will do, I'm using 140, and that would wrinkle, but I don't have it taped down, so it won't wrinkle as much. But I will bow it a little bit, so I'm just going to take the back and just wet the back with my mister. I'm just going to go wet the back. And you can also, I've seen people use a wet rag behind their paper. They just lay it down. And of course, I always use a towel. I could spray the towel a little bit to keep this a little damp right here. And so I can do that too. I can just spray this to dampen it a little bit. And now it's going to curl upwards because my front of my paper is not... See how when I spray the back, it goes this way. And so that means it's expanding in the back. But now if I spray the front, it'll just lay down because I'm just going to do a big wash over everything anyway. So I might as well just wet the front. And then I don't start painting on that. I always take my brush first, a clean brush, rub it out. And see how it just kind of goes flat now? It'll just go flat, and then I'm just going to take my brush. Oh, a clean brush. Look at I got something in there already. I put a stripe on my paper here, but that's it's just a little bit of paint in my brush. So I'm just going to lay my brush across it, going all back and forth, and evening out the water that I sprayed on there. Because if I spray them with a mister, it doesn't seep into the paper because it's a mist of water, and it doesn't go into the paper. And I want the paper to be, or the water to be going into the paper so that it just lays flat after I get, after I wet it. So I want it nice and flat. And I'm using 140 because I ran out of 300 pound, but it's just as good. It's just, it's just that you have to really watch the back because it will, and actually the better thing to do is actually work on board, especially when you're doing something outside. Just make this, glue it onto a board, onto some kind of board. I've got all videos on my YouTube channel. You can watch how to do that. So let's see if any questions. Where is this? Any questions? Great photo. Thank you. Thank you. First time here live. Thank you, Clint. Hope you enjoy it. And so this is the 10th video now from the series. This is all going to be the whole year. We're going from 1 to how many weeks there were. And every once in a while I can't do a one. And so it's not exactly a whole year, but pretty close. So now I'm going to go right away with getting my sunlight, right? The sun back there. And just get my lights. So I'm going to do all my lights, even the water lights. And when I'm down here, I'm going to show you that when I did the drawing, I made the parts that I know are going to be darker lines, and the ones that are just going to be slightly, I don't want a really heavy line where it's just going to be a light change of color, and especially in the lights. So this is going to be a little bit bluer, and there's some orange, and so when I get down there, it's going to be a little bit different from up here where I'm just going to blend everything together. And I'm not going to have as hard a line, and you notice the line is tangent to the top in the photo, so I'm bringing it down into the post, not right on the top of the post. And that whole big light right there, I'm not even going to have that. So I'm going to take my orange, my yellow, and mix it with red to get an orange. I'm going to just mix it with, and the first thing I'm going to do is find out where my sun is going to be. And so I'm going to take the sun right here. I'm just going to put a little circle around. That's the only part that's going to be white of the whole painting. And the reflections, but the reflections will be paint, white paint, because I'm too lazy to do the masking fluid. And then as I go away from the sun, I'm going to get a little more orange. And there's a little speck of something right here. Let's put that on my... When you do get like new tablecloth, not tablecloth, the towels that put down on the table, when you're doing that, a lot of times there's lint that probably can come up in there. So wash it a few times so you can really get the lint off of there. And then I just love having the ability to rub right next to my painting to just let it go off its head. And you have no run back, bleed back. And you can just make it really nicely go to the edge. You don't have to tape it down. You don't need tape. And see how I'm going to do the sky a little bit more orange. Taking red and yellow. And trying to mix a lot of it here so I can really get that look. And then the sun, it goes from a white to a yellow to this orange here. And don't worry about these posts. Don't worry about any of that. Just go right through that right now. And don't try to make the reflections in the water right now, because that would take you too much and you can't get the nice wash of clear water. This is going to soften itself. It's going to be nice and clean. And I don't have to stop. I can put those things in later. I could even rub out, when I get down to that point, I could rub out that a little bit there too. Here is really orange. But now remember, it's always going to get about 20% lighter and 20% duller with the color, depending on, of course, what color you're using. So I'm just going up here. And the line being so hard where the horizon line is, you can make it that hard, or you just make it a little bit hard. So you don't, I think, is it that important that you make a hard line right there? No, absolutely not. Because that's right on the edge in the photo. It's too much right on the edge there. So what I'll do is I'll come down here and I will I'll make that a little bit lighter. And I'll just take my brush across and kind of straightly go across. And again, don't worry about the seagulls or anything, because they're all going to be darker. And so anything that's darker in the front, that's why we paint light to dark, so that we can have the option of going over that. And that's the best part about it. And so now, as I'm doing the water, this is the water part. I could also, see, I'm picking up some of the paint, and so I can do that. Make it look like a change of values. And this is still not dark enough over here. And when it's wet, it softens itself. You don't have to soften it. You just let the water soften it. You just brush across. And then if I need to go back in there later, I really don't want to. But if I do, I have to wet the whole thing again. So try to get that done to where you want it and then leave. And never come back until it's dry. And then if you do have to go back in, you have to re-wet it all evenly again. So I'm going across, and see, sometimes you have to just watch it. All right, now I'm taking my brush that's kind of dry, just dried it on and I'm absorbing some of the pigment way up there to get me my horizon line a little bit. And I can either change it in color too, maybe make it a little bit more yellow. Just go across. And there are very slight waves very in the far distance, and you can get them now with a little bit thicker paint, or just wait until later and get them like a tint of color. And as I come down, it's going to get more blue or a violet. And so, which is kind of weird, that rarely happens, really. I mean, most of the time it's not these colors, because this is a special picture. And so, you decide. And if you love this kind of scene, go out there a lot and don't just do one picture. Go out there for a whole week and just constantly see what's happening when the sun goes down, and take notes and make sketches, make little sketches of it. And to see how the right here on the edge of the towel, how nicely that is. Just go off the edge and you don't have to worry about the edge. And when you frame it, you're always going to frame in a quarter of an inch anyway, so that's a little bit lighter. Who cares? You're never going to see that in the frame. Or even when you put a mat over it, right? The edges are going to stay nice and light. How do you clean your orange out of your yellow square when the paint is still wet in your palette? I really don't have to. If I want like bright orange or bright yellow right away. Let's see, I'm moving it around here too much. So if I want this to go to yellow, all I do is I take one little bit, because that little bit of orange that I put in there is not going to really affect it that much. So I go over to the edge right here, and then I'll pick up pure orange, and look at how pure that is. You know, it's you don't. When you're mixing, I touch here, and first I go into yellow. I try to go into yellow first. Sometimes I don't, but then I just mix it here, and this is where I mix it. And so if I want a pure yellow, I just take all that little yellow out, put it into my water, and it's fine. It's plenty. Some people have like two yellows, because one for mixing and one for, because they get yellow. I must say, is one of those colors that will really get contaminated really easily. I just saw that somewhere too. Somebody was talking about that they use two yellows, the same yellow, but in two little parts, so that one's for mixing, one's for just using. And you can also do that for white, because white gets contaminated really easily too. And I have a jar of white, so I just use that to pull out the white. Now we're going to go a little bit and make ourselves, and I do have this lavender here, and instead of mixing lavender, I'm just going to use a lavender. It takes a while to mix the lavender, but if I hope I mix a lavender that's beautiful, and so I'm just going to use that for some of these darker waves. If you can find the color that you want for certain things, you get kind of used to that, and that's kind of fun. I could mix it with blue and white, and a little bit of red, and that's going to take me a little bit too much time, and so I'm just going to use the lavender. If it wasn't here, I would mix it for you, but basically it's like blue. Here, watch. You take blue, white, and then you mix a little bit of red with that. And you have to just, it's going to dirty your thing, but look at how close that is. It's almost like lavender too. So you can mix it. It's nice to have the color. When you get better and better, and you're going to buy all those colors that you want on your palette, pick ones that you're going to use a lot. I've been looking at my palette, my regular palette, which is this one, my full color palette, and I still haven't filled it totally up, but there's so many colors on here, and sometimes I use them because that's the color I use for sky or water and stuff. But when I started thinking about it, man, you could have a ton of colors, but mixing them helps you to understand that you can mix them from those three colors. So try it first when you're starting out to mix those colors, because it's really a good exercise. And I put a really light pencil lines here where the blue is going to be, but first I want to get all this yellow in here and get the little yellow waves too, yellow and orange. So get that first, get that all kind of cleared out, and even put it down here first. And at a certain point, there's only a little bit of yellow down here, and this I'm now doing on dry paper, so it's not blending together. But when I get down there, I will wet it as I go along. But for right now, I'm just kind of getting my light yellows and oranges and a little bit of waves they have there. Again, you can go again later and get the harder edged waves, the ones that it can be still light but hard edged when you go in there later. And when light hard edges come together, they look like they're soft because there's not much contrast. So that's one way of making a soft edge without actually making a soft edge, is just keep it light in value and no contrast. Keep the same contrast and let the color do the difference too. And so again here I'm going to take a little bit of the lavender. Lavender has white in it, so you got to watch out. Don't use it thick, because then it's not transparent. So, but you can make any color that has white in it transparent by just blending it into water, and then it takes in, because pastel colors have white in them, have a little bit of white in them, the pastel colors. So, and you can use the paper to make your white, but you can also use the color. Just see how when it's wet and thin, like a glaze, then you're not seeing the white of the paint. You're just seeing the pastel color of that. And so I'm just putting my white little waves down here, and I'm wetting it as I go along. Some parts I'm gonna keep them dry, so I can get a few hard edges in there. That's fine. But right now I'm just doing my lights. I'm not going into the darks at all yet. well, a little bit darker for certain parts and stuff. I can do that. But later on is when I'm going to get the reflections and the waves, where the waves are dark away from the sun. Like I explained in my newsletter, that when the wave is looking at you, like, and then it goes away from you, the wave, it comes in front, and you see it in the front. Now it's going to be dark because the sun is in the back, and so it's not hitting that. So that's why that part of the wave is dark. And I like to do all the waves at first soft edged, like get the color in there, and try to do some soft edge waves. I can also put a little bit of blue in that violet. So as I'm getting up here, it gets a little bit bluer. So I'll put a little bit of the ultramarine blue into the violet. And this is all, most of it is wet into wet. Most of it I'm getting wet into wet. And I know you're thinking that I could take my brush right now, but I'm going to wait to get my white in there. You could do it now, but I'm just going to wait a little bit. Just worry about getting my lights in there. It gets you unafraid of the white paper, because that's, sometimes the white paper just scares people, because it's like, oh my god, I'm going to wreck the white sheet of paper. But if you just give it the lights, and you're not really wrecking it because it's not so light that you wrecked it, it's still just light, and don't worry about matching colors. That's going to really wreck you more than anything. If you're trying to match exact colors for things, that is so hard. I never do that, and it's just too hard. And, use colors that you like, and so you're going to like the painting because those are the colors that you like. It doesn't have to be the colors exactly to the picture. Though some people like to get very close to whatever's actually out there. And you can do that by practicing and doing those, those whatever you like. If you like this kind of scene, you got to paint it a lot. You go out there, and every day for a month, go out there and just study the colors of that. And you just by doing this one painting is not going to teach you exactly what this is about. You have to really experience it and get out there. You can trace it and copy it, and it can be pretty good. But if you love a subject matter, study it and really go out there and sketch it and study it. And I grew up around lakes, and so I love anything with lake involved. And I worked at a marina for many years, and so I know a lot about water. And just because I love painting water, and even to this day, though, I'm still learning. You always learn. Every time you do a painting, you learn more and more. And watching other artists do it a certain way, that's another thing. Go out there and watch other artists who love to do water and do marine scenes or whatever. Watch their ability and just memorize it and figure out what they had done, because it helps you too. And if they teach a class, take it. That when you learn right away what they do. Now I'm going to put a little bit of this blue up here. It's light blue. There's a little bit in there on the waves. Now watch out, don't put too much water up there, because then you're going to need a watermark. But if you have the same amount of water in your brushes up here, then you're just pushing some of the blue and making waves right there, see? I'm just putting a little bit of that blue, and I should do it straight across, because water doesn't go uphill. It does kind of curve, like it can curve, but it looks best when you do your waves, especially when they're coming at you. Do them in a flat surface, a flat horizontal brushstroke. It just makes the water sit flat, and which is a good thing. Like down here, see how these waves are going to the side, but I'm still going to do that downwards, but I'm going to do it with a brush stroke that's straight across. It's always good to do the brush stroke straight across. And then, of course, if you're doing something that's very, very detailed and you want to do it exactly like that, then you're going to do little parts, and you just get that to look exactly like what the photograph is. And that's hyperrealism. That's where you want to take and make everything look exactly like the photo. I'm more of an impressionist, so I kind of make things up sometimes. I put colors in that I like. I like purple, and so I'm going to be, when I put the other colors in there, I'm going to go in more to the purple. This purple and maybe even blue to make it a little bit more bluish purple. And then go in there and just get a little bit darker in some spots. But again, this is my light, so I don't want to get too dark yet. Any questions yet? What would you say the pressure of your brush is on the paper? The pressure is not so much the pressure that you put down, because the more pressure you put down, of course, you're going to give it more of a, the amount of pigment's going to float in there a little bit more. It's about how much paint and how much water you have in your brush. That's more important than anything. Like if you have a lot of water in your brush and hardly any paint, you're just going to screw up what you had done down here, because you want to, if you want to just push paint around, you have to have your brush the same wetness as the surface, and then you're just helping it along. You're pushing around. If you want a lot of water where it's bleeding and you're just want it to float, then you put a lot of water down first on your paper, but then still with your brush you just mix the color, and not with so much water. You have to sometimes mix it because you need water to mix it, but then get it so you tap down on your paper on your towel here, get rid of the water, but then just use the pigment and push the pigment and swipe it across to get a little bit of a soft edge too, because it's not so much floating as it's like you're pushing it across the paper, and it's not going to push away more water. So it's always about how much water and brush, the ratio between water and pigment on your brush. That's important. The pressure, it depends on if you want to do something really thick, and yeah, the pressure is basically to get a certain technique mostly when you're doing pressure stuff of your painting. Now up here it's almost dry. Now always check with the back of your hand, not with the front, with the oils on your fingers. My paper is pilling. Am I using too much water? Cheap paper. Yeah, it's cheap paper. only paper that pells is going to be cheap paper that's doesn't have great sizing in it. Maybe it's not internally sized. And also if you have soft paper, that's another thing too. But it could be soft paper, but if you put tape on it or masking fluid, it's going to rip it up because it's soft paper. So it's either soft paper or it's. But pelling is a whole different thing, because that doesn't. Pelling is because you put water on a paper that doesn't hold together really well because it doesn't have good sizing. So get better paper. It's really important to get good paper. It's hard to paint on paper that's like student grade, because it's either just surface sized and it's not sized throughout the whole paper, and it's really hard. I know it's a little bit more expensive paper, the good stuff, but it makes a big difference, boy, when you're doing watercolor. I can use cheap paper pretty easily, but I don't like to. It's no fun because I have to paint totally different. Here it's absorbing in a little bit for my, you have to have it absorb a little bit. And then some people who like hot press, it doesn't absorb as much either, so it sits on top. So it's all about just practicing with a certain paper and getting to know it too. Like if you like the look of cheap paper, then, I used to use hot press all the time and I loved it. And hot press kind of acts like cheap paper because everything floats on top and doesn't really absorb it much. And you get a lot of blobby dots, but some people like that, So it's basically, but cheap paper that's not sized right. That is the part where you're getting pell up, because, and that's not really a watercolor paper. Then if it's pelling, that's not a good watercolor paper, anyways. So I'm kind of waiting here for things to dry. But while I go ahead now, I'm gonna, my background's done, my sky is done. I could pull out a little bit of sun right here by just taking a damp brush. No, not a loaded brush, just a damp brush, because this is still slightly wet, and so I'm just going to take out some of the pigment right underneath here. And I could do a little like this. I can go sideways, but I'm pulling out pigment because it's still a little wet. And then I'll put white over that too. And I didn't go as orange as the scene because that to me is almost fake. And I think this is an AI picture that I got off the internet, which is still royalty free. But there's a lot of that going around out there now, where they make in these stock photo places, they have AI make it up, the picture, and so sometimes it just makes it too perfect, and the colors are like, I've never seen. I say that the sky can be any color, and it really can, but I've never seen this kind of color, and that's really, really red and really orange, but it can happen. It can happen, though. So this is my light. I'm waiting for it to dry. I can put a little bit of that sun out of there right now. Took a little bit of that out there. All right, so while this is, I'm going to go from back to front. So back here, I'm going to make red and orange again. I know it's dark, but I'm going to make it more of a dark red. And then put a little bit of blue in there to make it purple. And so I'm going to start back here and just kind of go in there. And it's still dry enough. It's cold, but it's dry enough that if you're using enough pigment. I'm just going to go back here. I'm going to put a little bit of more yellowy orange in there too, because right by the sun, right here, it should be nice and red because it's optical scatter too. Like it's not burning that part away, but it's going to light it up really reddish and orangey right here, right underneath the sun right here. It's going to be kind of red. It's warm back there. It's very warm. The sun is going down. And as I come forward, I'll get a little bit cooler. That means also darker and more brown-like. So I'll put a little bit more blue in there. And I'm not doing the seagulls on top of them yet. I'm just doing the poles, or the poles in the ground. And then I'll take a little bit of blue to make my purple. The blue and the orange will make a brown, or like a gray, depending on how much of what color I put in there. I'm just going to get a little bit darker. And you notice I'm not doing each individual one individually. I'm just doing them all as one big area. You wait for do things individually when you start getting to the finishing point. I'm not doing the reflections yet. I'm just doing the bottom of the posts. I'm wetting them as I go along, and then just drop pigment into that. Then I can do that too. So I'll take a blue and an orange and get darker and darker as I come forward. But keeping the tops of these a little bit more red, that always helps out a little bit. I can go around a little bit around that tail right there, that bird. And I can also just take then water and wet it as I go along here, and just wet it. And then manipulate all the colors and stuff as it's wet. Because that's called painting wet into wet, and also floating your pigment. I like floating pigment because then you get all the granulation. And down here, this is starting to be, this will be the reflections, but I'm not going to put them in yet. I'm just going to first put in, so the left side would be a little bit darker of these posts. So there I took some solid blue, and on my ultramarine blue, and put it into this brown that I already have there. I'm going to need to get to a really dark. Like some of these are almost black, and so I want to get the dark, and I want to get in there right away. Will the lavender not turn green and the yellow? Use more orange than yellow so it doesn't turn green. Yes, it will turn green, but more of an aqua green, which is fine. You know, having a little bit of green in your blue is good, because that's what aqua, it looks like aqua, and that's what happens if that's the color of the object. Now see, this part was still wet, so I'm getting all these soft edges, and so that was not a good thing. But sometimes you just have to go right here. I got to get rid of that, so a little bit. But yes, lavender is a purple, so purple will turn a little bit of yellow green, but it'll make it more gray actually, because lavender is great for making things gray. And look at all these soft edges, and so I'm just going to take those soft edges, try to take them away because it's still wet right here. And just add a little bit more pigment than water. So the pigment will stop the water from running all over the place. So just get thicker pigment. Yeah, this is all. See, because the back is damp, and that gives you a little bit more time to the front to stay wet and stuff. So that's a good thing. I see you may not mind that the UMB turned your waves a greener shade above than with lavender. Yeah, I don't mind it being a little bit turquoise, and it is kind of green up there, yes. But that's what blue and yellow make green, so it's a natural thing that happens in the water too. You know, I could put a little bit more lavender in there. I could do that later when I do the more detail stuff. But this is blue, and I kind of separate the. It's going to make it a little bit of green with the lavender and blue. But that's just natural. You know, it turns it. Just try to make it turn more of a aqua. You know, like an aqua. Turquoise. You know, turquoise is great to use in water, and it's a green blue. You know, so that's fine. This is more going to be I'm trying to make it a little bit more yellow violet, but you are going to get some yellow and blue in there too. I mean, orange and blue in there too. Let me just get really quickly. I'm just gonna use my heater here and my stripper and just really quickly dry it really quick. And this is quite enough where I can still talk and you can still hear me a little bit. But one thing about using 140 though, it will start kind of blending back and forth. But if you wet the back and keep it wet, see what's happening is that it's soaking through the paper when you have it wet. But you need it nice and wet for the beginning because you want to have the big area wet. And so I would suggest that you use it on masonite or plexiglass. You can put and wet the 140 pound. I would never tape it though, because if you tape it, you get curls because it's expanding. And it's going to expand on not the back, on the front, and it's just going to curve. It's always going to curve. Yeah, I use a heat gun. I just was going to bring the heat gun to class the other day. I have a Ryobi now, and they're strippers. They're basically the wood strippers or paint strippers. And I bought a couple of these small ones. But for me, I sold them to some of the students because they like it where it's handheld and no cord. That's fine, but to me, when I'm outside and it's really damp, you need some heat in there. And so I bought the Ryobi, the cordless one with the battery pack, and boy, that thing dries like right away. So it all depends on what you need. There's many things out there. And this morning I went to a demonstration by Carmelo, and he's a watercolorist, and he was showing eraser, like an electric eraser. And so I'm going to try with that. I'm still not sure what I'm going to use it for, but I'm going to try it, and I'm going to probably show it to you guys later on then too, once I start. I always try the things first before I go and write about them or talk about them. So I'm going to do this one right here now. I probably shouldn't until I do the water, but everything else is still a little bit wet. But I just want to show you that you do like the yellow or the orange part because it's right by the sun, right? The top of it be more orange. But on the side, you go really right away dark. You go really dark. And now this is nice and dry already, so look at the hard edge I get. But I said I probably should have done the water first, but oh well. I'll have to go into that. And there's, it's not specific ways you have to do a painting. Every artist does it a little bit differently. And some, most watercolors to do dark or light to dark, and that's just good. But, and get the area underneath it done first before you put the dark over it, because then it got a nice clean edge. Because if I go with the waves now across that, which I will, but it's going to be fine. But normally you don't want to do that. And I always try to get done with this object right away. I don't sit there and fuss around with thinking I'm going to go back 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 times. I try to get it done in the first wash, and most of the time I try to get everything done by 2 washes. 3 and 4 washes, that's too much. You're going to start getting grays, and you're going to get mud, and so it's just it's going to look overworked then too. All right, so let's just start going to some of the water things here now. And so I'm going to take and wisp, and this is dry enough now. It's still cold, but it is dry enough right now. I have another watercolor teacher who uses a Dremel to make water waves. Works nicely to make it a pure watercolor without using wash. Oh, that'd be interesting to see. Let us know who that is, and if you can see it on YouTube, we'd love to see that. It's always neat to see how other people do their waves and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do now is get more of the middle tone waves in here. And so I'm going to start with the waves up here and just work my way down and get all the water done, basically the waves. And basically, like these reflections of the posts in there probably should be a little bit darker too. So I'm going to just real quickly put a little wash over them. A little bit darker on the side here. And separating them too. But then underneath them, I'm just going to put a little bit of the reflection in the water, and that's just the same color that the object is. I'm just putting it right down below there. Just take the same color. It's reflecting the same color down into the water, because the water doesn't have color. People got to understand water. Well, around where I live, there's color in the water, but like really clear water, it gets all its color from what's around it. It's like the sun it's all reflective. It becomes like a shiny object, and it reflects what's above it and around it. And so here we got the yellow in there, we got the sun shining on it, we got the actual object, which is brown, kind of brownish, purplishy. And so you put that in there. That's what you use that, but then you also, you put that in the reflection because that's what's right above it. It's whatever is really close to what the object is throwing the reflection. Reflections can be, the color of the water, which is the color of what's being made right there. Because the yellow sky is usually, the water is usually the color of the sky, right? Because it's reflecting and bouncing off of there. And the stuff that's dark is actually reflecting behind me, because it's like it's looking at it, and it's like a mirror, and you're reflecting behind you or on the side of you. It's not reflecting this because that's the yellow that you see here. It's like a million different little mirrors bent like this, and so it's picking up all the color from everywhere else. And again, that's because water doesn't have the color. The only time you get white water is when it's churned. When you churn it and you bubble it, and it becomes bubbles, right? When it falls and when it breaks up, and so then you get little bubbles, and it's like foam, and then it's white usually, or the white you can get from the sun because it's reflecting into the water also. So now on the bottom of these posts, I'm going to put the wave. And the farther back you go, then you don't get as much of the where it goes down really far. Like, see how this one goes really kind of far down, and actually doesn't go that far because the water's going upwards here, and so it's a little bit less. But back here, it's a little bit flatter, so you're just getting a short little bit, a burst of reflection in there, and with the color of the object. Like here, you're going to get a little bit of this dark. And then there's reflections back there also of the water that's coming through here, and you're just going to do little wisps. I call them wisps because they're little waves of a little darker color. And again, this is away from the viewer, or pointing towards the wave is pointing towards the viewer. And again, straight lines, no curvature lines, unless it was a really heavy waves where this goes up and down. But this is just like slight waves. So little lines, and don't worry about these. Go right through those. Go right through those lines. And I'm doing all the violet-y ones right now. And this dark means it's pointing towards you. It's the wave pointing towards your face, because you're looking down and it's straight against the straight as you're facing it, and it's away from the sun. And this is like the middle tone wave now. Now I'm getting the middle tone waves, not the darkest waves yet. And they're hard edged. I'm not going to make them soft edged because I'd have to wet the whole thing again. They just go away. So I'm just going to make them light, and that way they'll look high key a little bit. They'll look high key. They won't be really dark. And they'll look soft because they are just very slight change of value. Slight change of value. They are a little bit different color, but that's a good thing. But it still will look soft. It will still look soft because there's no contrast. I'm just using the lavender, and see, I'm just putting the waves in. Like these waves right here, you can see it goes up a little bit. Like it goes up, and so you're going to do that. You're going to go up a little bit with the wave, and then it kind of goes downwards. So follow what the wave's doing. If it's going up a hill and then down, then you make the one side dark and the other side light. And if there's like a lot of just lines, and see now this is still wet, so now I'm going to get running into this. See, that's why I should not have done that. My wrongdoing. And no painter is perfect. You always are experimenting. You're doing a different painting, so you're not quite sure sometimes what you're doing, because you just have to practice, and that's why you practice. And this basically, my classes here is practice for you. It shouldn't be about the painting. It should be about how you learn and practice those things that I've been teaching you. And hopefully in the end you will get a nice painting. But it's not about the painting. It's about learning how to do things. So here we're going to go. I'm so happy that I didn't do these, because I can go right through there. Put a little blue and lavender. It's getting a little darker up here now. And look at these darker waves. And so I'm just taking the waves, putting them up the side of this one. There's a lot of roundness to here where it goes up and then goes down. And these are all darker because I'm getting into my middle tone now and my darks. And basically waves are lines, right? They're just lines because it goes up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And so parts are a little bit darker because they're more away from the sun. And I wouldn't make them textured. Just don't go across the paper quickly because you don't need texture in the waves unless they have like a waterfall where you want texture. Because these should be just nice and even, little round waves. Nicely even. And soft edged. The water is soft unless it breaks up. And I'm not doing the orange part yet. I'll do that later when I get into a little bit darker and a little bit change of color. Right now I'm just looking at the picture trying to get the dark or the medium more or less, the medium more. Then I'll go into my dark details, and that would be in the dark details when I do the detail. I have another watercolor teacher who uses drum. Okay, read that. Gouache, not wash. Good evening. Thank you for what time we have. Okay, get going here. All right, look at all this dark right here. There's a really dark right here. I'm gonna go right into there because I have to. I can't wait to go and stop and not go into that area. I gotta get these lines in there. And then there's a big dark right here. And now I'm going to take a little bit darker. I'm going to make all the mix that I have in my palette. I'm just going to use that. I'll make some of these dark lines that I see there. Right here is a really dark one. I'm going to use a little bit more dark blue. Some red to make it violet. And then just do some of these darker washes, not reflections. These are still just a wash of the... Oh, that was supposed to be light right there. Oh well. A couple little darker ones here. Then there's a bunch of little... I'm still getting the middle tones first. Always to get the middle tones first before you get the dark ones, the details of the reflections. And make sure you keep some of that light from the below. I mean, because it's all wavy. And the waves have everything from light, medium, and dark. Light, medium, dark. Light, medium, dark. And then I'll be using white paint to make the reflections on the side there. And why do I do that? Because I didn't put masking fluid down. I'd rather get it with the matte paint, and I think it's a neat look. I mean, that's what oil painters do when they do the finishing touches. They put it on there, and that's cool. I like that. All right, now a little bit more of the orange now. See, now I'm going to go in my orange part and get those little orange waves in there. Because they kind of separate from the blue, and so I'm doing them in the light spots, or the yellow spots. Bunch of lines. Waves are a bunch of lines that are different values and different colors. 3 different values, 3 different colors. Or 2, like here it's like 2 or 3 different colors. Warm and cool. I'm using separate warm and cool. Alright, so now let's, I pretty much have enough of waves. Here there's a little bit darker ones. So let's take some more of this lavender. Because all these reflections are going to be, not reflections, but they're more of the waves color darker. Because this is a reflection and these are waves. And so they'll have a little bit different look because the waves are only blue. They're not reflected of the brown that's in the post. So, but when you do the reflection of the post, it's going to have some brown and blue of the water in there. So you get a little bit of both. So I'm going to do that really dark. And I'm going to follow exactly what the photo has shown me for the reflection. Because I can make it straight down, but because it's wavy, it's kind of wavy right in the front. I'm just going to follow what I see in the reflection. Make it nice and blue, purple, a little red, maybe a little bit of black to make it nice and dark. And then just, I even do the reflections. I do across. I do kind of straight across horizontally. Now I'm not getting enough of the red in there, or the orange, so a little bit of yellow in there too. This has to be really dark. I want this to be almost be black, because it is. It's reflecting the dark in there, and it's not like a picture of the stump. It's just a dark reflection. So you don't get as much detail, but you do get the waveness in there, because all these little points that go outwards like this, that's a wave, and it's distorting the look of the stump that's straight down. Normally you just have it straight down, right? But because it's wavy, you're going to distort that reflection. And since I have this already in my brush, the dark, I'm just going to do this one, even though my pose is not done. I know I'm going to do about the same color, so I'm just going to do the reflection real quickly. And then this reflection kind of distorts because the water is like churning and it's kind of bubbling and stuff. So then you can just do all kinds of little, that's where you can get the detail of the, like going across quickly and get the texture of the paper, because it's messing up the water and it's making it bubbly and churning. And this one too, let's do this one right away. Let's get in there. And this one's really broken up too because of the churningness of the water being churned over and hitting the post and stuff. And if you were doing hyperrealism, you would draw in every single wave in there. But being an impressionist, I do an impression of the wave. I just do a lot of, I know it's dark right underneath, but I don't do exactly what the wave is in the photo. I'm just making it up on my own. Yep. There we go. A bit more red in that dark. And I'm using a lot of pigment when I get those reflections in there. I am using a lot of pigment, and it goes all the way down. It kind of goes out. You could actually draw and pencil in everything exactly there and just copy over it. And that's okay. It's fine to copy that because it is the picture, so why not? Here it gets really dark in here, a couple of spots. Same thing here, there's a little bit of darkness in there. Oh, I shouldn't have done this because I kind of like how it stops right there, the water, and then you get a couple little lines in there too. And those will be part of the final details. All right, let's get these two big ones. And I'm using a round brush because it's kind of a big round thing anyway, so I'll put a little brown, and so the brown is to add all three primaries together, and you're going to get brown. So yeah, I just added all three primaries. If you want to make it a little bit darker, add a little bit more blue and red on this side. Whoops. I'm just going to wet it then, and then I'm going to go in there and just make texture. Once I got the water in there, I can make some texture, the grain in there. Maybe make the top again a little bit warmer. And actually, it looks like it's cooler up here because it's in total shadow. And the bird, same thing, it's in total shadow. And there's a little rim lighting, but not much rim lighting on them. I'll make it a little bit warmer up here. I better hurry up here. I'm going kind of slow and talking too much. Hello from North Carolina. Hey, Bob. Well, thanks. Thanks for stopping by and watching, and for the nice words of encouragement. The quicker you do your brush across the paper, the more texture you'll get. But if you want wet into wet and you want soft edges and floating pigment, then you got to do it with dry paper and slow. Go a little bit slower. Here I'm getting rid of that little bit of paint that was wet, and so you got a little runniness to it. So let's get a little bit more violet. And you get, take more than an hour. Don't try to rush this in an hour when you're doing the paint along. Don't try to do it as fast as I'm doing, because I'm rushing, and so a lot of times if you go a little bit slower, then you can make it up mind a little bit more on colors that you get exact. And when you rush it like this, you just take it whatever you get and you go with it. And here's little poop marks. So I'm going to take a little bit of this violet and do the little poop marks on the side of this thing. You don't have to put the poop marks in if you don't want. But it makes it look more realistic, right? There's a little bit of lavender I'm putting in here. All right, now the seagulls. We got to get the seagulls in there. And so the ones in the back are all just going to be warm. And I'm just going to take the orange because they're not going to be just the gray that they are. They're going to be influenced by the warmth of the back here. And you almost can't tell, you're going to put a little head on them. And you're not going to make them really detailed because it's too far away, right? As long as there's a little bump in there. And by knowing that these are detailed seagulls, you're going to know those are seagulls. Your mind makes that up right away. It's amazing how the mind works. It just takes into account that, well, if those are here, that's what that is up back there, those little bumps on the log. So I don't do those really detailed, really. I just go in there and get the kind of a shape of them. This one I can do a little bit more because it's a little bit farther forward. Why am I using such a big brush? Let's use a little bit rounder brush, smaller. And I'm still going to make this guy warm because he's still farther back, and so I'm still going to make him warm until I get to the front ones. Those I'll make warm on one side and cool, like lavendery grays. I'll put those in there. This guy too, I can make the back of him a little bit grayer. And I did one year, I was out there painting plein air, and I was studying seagulls up in Grand Marais, and I did tons of sketches. Just in my sketchbook. I painted some, I drew some. I just want to know I just want to know how to do a gesture pose of a seagull, flying and sitting and just standing there. And once you can do that, then you know how to do it because you've studied them enough, you draw them enough, and then memorize them. Memorize the shape of them. Memorize, like I know there's the wing. It's a little bit darker a lot of times on the really white ones. There's some that are just totally gray, like they're all gray and they're not so colorful or not as good looking as the ones that have a little bit of white with the gray fat or the gray wings. And so I'm just using the darker. The wings are a little bit darker usually, and then the head is white, and then the beak is orange. And same thing with the feet. Depending, sometimes the feet are orangey. And some of the seagulls, because there's like 2 or 3 different seagulls out there when we go to the certain places. But just generalize, so you can generalize them. So here I'm gonna make it a little bit. I'm gonna try to make it a little bit smaller too. I drew it in a little bit heavy. And then the tail is nice and dark really too, and behind there's the tail that comes out. And that's usually a little bit darker. Make it a little bit more orangey. Beak. The beak is a little bit orange. Again, know your subject matter. Learn it and love it. If you love that subject matter, you're going to learn a lot about it, and then you can just make things up because you know what the look of them is, you know what the shape of them are, and memorize that. That's so important for your drawing and for your painting, is to memorize the things that you're painting and drawing. Now I notice in between these two posts there's no waves there, so now I'm going to do the details. And that was detail too, right? That's detail of the birds, and they're not even that detailed really if you think about it. I didn't spend a lot of time going every perfectly feathers and stuff. You could do that too. You can go in there and get it really, really detailed, and it'll look good. Detail is good. My favorite paintings are the ones that are detailed and really loose. I like both. I like to have a little bit of both of everything. So now I'm going to go back and do my really detailed stuff now. Look at all my poop went away. And if you want it realistic, you got to put the poop in. Little poop marks here. It looks a little bit more realistic then, right? This one will have some too. And there's a couple little knots in here where there's holes, so make little dots and stuff and make it look realistic when you're going to do the detail. You can take it as far to the finish as you want, and also how loose you want it too. You don't have to make it all super, super detailed if you like the looseness of a painting. If that's your style where you go more looser, that's great. everybody should have a different style. And you do what you like. And have fun doing it. You know, we were talking about that today in this the workshop I saw, or not workshop, but the demonstration I was at. It'll be on YouTube sometime this week or next week. I mean, so we're getting pretty close here now. Now I'm just going to do details. What time do we have? Oh, it's 7:30. It's already over. So let me just do a couple more details right here, and we're done. See, like the little details of the waves. Oh, I didn't put the white paint in. Let me finish with that. I'm gonna take that with the white paint. Boy, time crept up on us so fast. No, I do not erase my pencil lines. Rarely. You said poop? Yep, I did say poop. It's the little seagull poop on the side of the things. And if you look at the picture close, there is, you know, little white lines going on the side of things. But with the white paint now, I'm just going to do the little details. Instead of masking fluid, I'm going to take it thick out of this. This is bleed-proof white that key liners used to use. And it's just like a gouache. You can use gouache or watercolor white. But you got to use it fresh. And I like using this fresh. And just where the sun is right here, I may even put a little dots in here. Anything that's right, you know, aligned with the sun. And you can also do a little dots here and there on this side too. I'm sorry I'm going over a little bit, but it's only about a minute or two. And so you can put little dots on the edge here. And when you put the dots, don't do them in the dark areas of the thing. You don't see the dark in the shadow of the wave. It's always on the light side of the wave. And you can do a lot of these dots where it turns from light to dark. That's where you put the dot. The dot goes not into the shadow of a wave. It goes in, and then on the edges, you can do it on the edge of this. Do like a little rim lighting. You can do that a little bit. And it doesn't really get wider. And the sun goes all the way down, like all the way down to here. You're going to get reflections. Even though in the picture there are no reflections right on this part, but because it's in the shadow, right? That's the shadow part, and reflections do not happen in the shadow part. They can't, because that's shadow. That's where it's reflecting towards you and not towards the sun. All right. I hope you enjoyed that paint along today. And if any other questions, please put them in the comments section, not in the chat, because the chat will go away once it doesn't go away, but you can't ask anymore in the chat. But just ask away in the comments, and I'll still answer them. All right. So have fun with this one, and do a lot of those little waves. Now, a thing I didn't get to is the really fine waves, just the little details. And I'll still do that right after this. And you'll see it on YouTube, and it'll be on the front of this video when I get it done. All right. Thanks again, guys, for stopping by this Thursday. You can see what I do on Sunday. I already picked it out. It's going to be a lady making cookies or making desserts, and I'll really quickly go to that just to show you what I'm doing on Sunday, and that would be my website here. So go down here, up here, I mean, and it would be right there. So that's what I'll be painting on Sunday, and you can watch me there on Sunday at 8:30 in the morning, Central Standard Time. So thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you on Sunday. Bye-bye.